Don't mind me, I'm just here in my barbell adapt joggers. Laura keeps telling me I look tall in these, as if she's not 9 inches shorter than I am. Let that be a lesson, men. It doesn't matter what you accomplish in life. Women are always going to make you prove how tall you are. So here's Benni Magnusson. He's the GOAT of deadlifting. This is him hitting his 1015 that was really historic. It was either 2010 or 2011. For decades, people were chasing this number. People thought it was impossible to powerlifting standards. He broke 1,000 pounds, hit 1015. And seeing him, I watched him live at the Arnold like 15 years ago on stage, and he would get fired up like this. He has this cherub-like aesthetic paired with the raw intensity coming at the barbell like a bull. And look at that just buttery lockout. He smiles, this is my favorite part, down like a broomstick. You just don't see that anymore. That's not just a world-class performance, that's dominance is what that is. Now the thing is, and I'm sorry to call Benni out, but you might notice a couple things. One, why is Benni wearing shorts at a powerlifting meet? That's not normal. 2, deep dish 100-pound plates, not unheard of, but it's not the, calibrated kilo plates we're used to seeing. And oh, what's this, a card girl? That's kind of a cool idea. This was ran by a guy, Sean Catterley, came up with this Hardcore Powerlifting Federation, which was not around very long, but he was trying to give powerlifting the P.T. Barnum treatment, which it probably fucking needed. But he had all this incentive to try and legitimize his federation by doing these types of things and having people break records. I think there was drama with like trying to get Eric Spoto to break the bench record there, and it was over whether or not he was going to get paid enough for it, something like that. The bottom line is Ivanko doesn't make calibrated 100-pound plates, and I know because I called their company and asked. So you might be thinking, oh, they must have double-checked their work. They must have weighed the plates afterwards. Like in 1975, when Don Reinhardt was the first guy to break 2,400 as a total, 50 fucking years ago, and they weighed it and they're like, oh, it's only 23.91. Sorry, bro, so close. Of course they didn't do that. Everybody accepts the 1015. Now the thing is with non-calibrated plates, 1%, 2%, there's a normal standard of how much the weight can deviate. And with 1,000 pounds on the bar, that could be 10 pounds, that could be 30 pounds. Benni's one of the GOAT deadlifters. That's not in dispute. But whether or not this was 1015, I think it should bother people that really nobody has questioned this lift. For reference, this is Benni Magnusson 5 years later in a strongman contest. Now, strength changes year to year. The elite strength athletes aren't just as strong as they are. It changes a lot in and around a peak, changes a lot as you focus on other things. So this is 5 years later. So this isn't a clear indicator, but it'll give you a frame of reference for the different feats. This is in a suit, that wide stance, really good signs wearing a suit, and the figure 8 straps. Although bro here is doing a good job of actually wrapping up the barbell, which can't be said for everybody. And then he gives his little thumbs up, his little smile to the crowd, his little token Benni Magnusson cheer. I think Benni's one of the GOAT deadlifters. I just don't believe that he deadlifted exactly 1015 on that day, and that should bother people. Now, up next, going into the sumo deadlift, we got Jamal Browner, 1014 at 241. Jesus, you all know what I'm going to complain about here, right? The blight on the sport. The reason less people take it seriously. The thing that fragile egos in powerlifting won't give up because it'll cost them their spot on openpowerlifting.org. That's right, you guessed it, the whippy spaghetti bar. Now, I've beaten the sumo horse to death, and the reasons here are obvious with the setup and the advantages. It's the only lift where the biggest spots are held predominantly by guys who are like under 260 pounds, which is absolutely bizarre. Now, someone made a point a while ago that makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of changed how I've thought about this. Sumo, for all its advantages, it's really weak off the floor, and it requires this whippy bar to be able to hit into to build momentum so the weights don't break off the ground until you're in like a 12 or 13 inch like rack pull pin height. So if you got rid of the stupid whippy bars, it would knock these lifts back down to earth. Sumo might still be an advantage for some people, but it's not going to be this ridiculous optimized lift. And regardless of that, the idea that like a specialized bendy bar would be made to artificially boost deadlift numbers is just really fucking lame. It's as egregious as the creation of the bench shirt. Like, gaming shit that way, it's not a great way to do it, but this is going to come up in literally every video we see, so this is the last I'm going to mention it. So then we have the other mutant deadlifter, Danny Grigsby, a 1074 at 275. Jesus Christ, the hook grip is like the most impressive thing here. Look at his build. He is genetically engineered for this shit, like out of a lab. Get your feet out that wide and see if your kneecaps are a foot away from your shoulders on either side. It's just crazy. And he's genetically engineered to do this. He is like built from the ground up to do this the way Michael Phelps is built to swim, with his oversized arms and flipper feet. Like, this is such a unique arrangement of proportions that allow him to do this. So how would I fix their deadlifts? Well, first, if Danny got his feet like 3 inches further apart, I think he could gain even more leverage by rolling the plate up the arches of his feet and back against his slanted shins. And I think that would accomplish the legendary technique that was prophesied to push powerlifting further, the mythical kipping deadlift. I think Danny Grigsby could actually pull it off. In before Deadliest Lifts attempts to roll the bar back over his feet and up his shins, I thought I had a hard time coming up with content. Now for Jamal, I don't think that makes a lot of sense because he doesn't start out as wide. He's comfortable with a little more of like a frog stance, which suits him, still starts with his knees and hips really well open. But Jamal is borderline in a ballerina's plie. And I think if he was serious about this now, I think he could take some time away from powerlifting. And I think he could go to like a ballet retreat. And when he came back, he might be able to get his knees actually behind his hips. And that would lead to a negative moment arm. And I think that's technically infinite leverage. You guys are close. The future of powerlifting depends on you guys. I believe you. Now, to appease the seething powerlifting fans who are going to be raging that I'm making fun of some of the greatest deadlifters of all time, I feel like I probably should point out that these guys are the greatest in their sport and they are built to do exactly what they do and they are extraordinarily strong and history will remember them as such. Like I probably should say that. Now on to the strongman. We had this one event where like 6 guys broke 1,000 pounds all at the same time and like rocketed them to this elite level. The fact that this many people, even in strongman, even with the suits, even with the straps, the fact that this many people in strongman are pulling over $1,000 is kind of insane. You got Novikov, unbelievable strain here to break that 1,000-pound barrier. You got the T-Rex, you got hyper psycho nut Evan Singleton putting all the effort in, brother. Look at this spastic ADHD Mountain Dew fueled lockout. Look at that intensity. Yeah, I like how they cut away right as he slammed the bar on the ground and fell over. You got Gabriel Pena. Look at that, right at the knee. Dying, seizing to lock that weight out. Yeah, be proud. That's a feat, man. And Beskovich. I don't even know who this guy is. But looking at those meaty quads, I feel like this weight's about to get yeeted. Oh, like butter, my friend. Like butter. Let's have a replay. Look at that shade of purple on his thighs. That's intensity. And then we got Bishop, you got Pavlo, and you got Graham Hicks. Hold up. What's this? What am I looking at here? Ho, 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 ho. All right, well, that's good. I was worried this video was going to be too long anyways. All right, now we got Hooper. We got the man from Canada actually respecting Imperial Freedom units because he didn't settle for 0.2 pounds away from 1,000. He bumped that shit up to 454 even. He was going to get that clean, even 1,000 pounds. This guy's not cutting any corners. Now, I appreciate the holes in his socks right here because you might mistake that for someone that doesn't have gainful employment, but you don't have the keen strategic mind of a 20-year strongman vet. Because I know from experience, those are actually speed holes. Those reduce drag from air resistance and increase efficiency of force transfer, which is why Mitch Hooper is such an explosive deadlifter. Strongmen are just always so innovative with the equipment. Now, I've said it before, Mitch Hooper is a mutant among mutants. With so many guys deadlifting insane weights, it doesn't make sense how he got so strong so fast, how he moves the weight he does. But the thing is, if you watch his lockout, like he yanks the weight off the ground so violently, his lockout is very inefficient. Gets it to his knees and then he starts seizing, the knees pull away, he's ratcheting up. There's a way to hitch that's really clean and efficient, and this isn't really it. Now, why does he keep doing it this way? Because if you're setting world records, you don't need to fix it. If you're the Ethiopian marathon runner that runs with a crook in his arm because that's how you carried your books to school and you're smoking everybody, why fix it? But if Mitch gets to a point where he needs to lift more weight, he's leaving like 60 pounds on the bar with this. Now, oftentimes it's related to the start. The position to just yank the most weight off the ground isn't the same as the position to most optimally run your hips through once the bar is over your knees and your legs are out of the way. And oftentimes the act of just yanking the bar up causes the back to give, causes the hamstrings and glutes to stretch out a little bit, puts you in a kind of a shit position, and it's not great for cranking those hips through as fast as possible. The way you fix that is by making sure that every rep you ever do in a deadlift is always done with an explosive, clean, efficient hitch. It's probably more patterning and coordination and just practicing the habit than it is like specifically being weak in one particular muscle. Same way Julius Maddox benches 800 pounds. One of the strongest benchers ever. He's not doing what Jimmy Cole does with 1,400 pound board presses for fucking reps because he's never had to pattern strength in that position. He probably has the muscle. He probably has the raw ability, but it requires some practice. I think personally that Mitch has the ability to throw on like 50 pounds by spending a couple weeks practicing a good hitch. Even if he does what like Rob Kearney does, where he sets the bar on his knees, squats down, leans back, and then slides his hips through. I mean, the guy's using a rough jerk to chase world records. I think he has more than enough room to game his deadlift to add some weight to it if he needs to. Now, the only thing that really gets me here is the bare skin, because he doesn't have the thighs that are caked in baby powder, like all of the power lifters that are just pissing people off in the back room because the baby powder mixes in with chalk. You can't tell the difference, makes everything slick, and it makes it smell like a convalescent home. Baby powder smells like death to me. Mitch doesn't appear to have a bunch of shit on his thighs. Maybe he does. I don't know. Bare skin against a deadlift bar. That's like, you might as well be wearing tacky towels for pants. I solved this problem by wearing sweats. And I end up looking like a dad who just got done yelling at his kids for leaving the screen door open on the double wide because, God damn it, electricity doesn't grow on trees. And it doesn't help that I wear New Balances when I deadlift because they're perfectly optimized deadlifting footwear. Fight me. But the point is that if you can completely eliminate friction, you can set that bar on your legs, pull it back into you, and slide it back, and it goes up like butter. It looks like there's a lot of unnecessary resistance there. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. That's what it looks like to me. Trust me, guys, I know Mitch's game is solid. He has not taken tips from me. Now we're going to start pairing them up. We got JF Caron and Brian Shaw going back to back. This is 463, right around 1019. In the elephant bar deadlift. Elephant bar, mammoth bar, there's so many different bars. JF Caron's an absolute unit. Now, people love to quibble over whether or not this is easier or harder. Rogue was trying to pull some fuckery because they wanted to use this bar when they were getting everybody to set the deadlift record. They were throwing out like $50,000, $100,000 prizes for anybody who could break the current standing deadlift record. And they were doing it on the elephant bar. And it's because they knew that it was optimized for weight. Saying that this is harder because there's whip in it, that's like saying that because somebody who does a jerk or a sumo deadlift for the first time is going to suck at it, that it's harder. The potential is just so much greater. It's not even funny. These strongmen are used to deadlifting on every type of implement under the sun. The whip did not stop Zydrunas from hitting like 1200 on the Hummer tire deadlift, and that shit whipped a lot more than this did. It gives you the same advantage as a regular ass spaghetti deadlift bar, except to a greater degree because the plates here stick out farther, so the bar is much higher before the plates break off the ground. That allows you to pull into sub-maximal weight to build up momentum so that you are A, in a stronger position by the time all the weight gets taken into your hands, and B, you are at maximal motor unit recruitment, which takes a period of time to get to. So those who train explosively on whippy bars can absolutely game the fuck out of them. And Brian Shaw, Jeff Caron right here, they're no exception. Now, does everybody pull more? No, but that's not the point. The point is the potential is much, much greater. And that is, of course, why Rogue opted to use this bar so they could say that they sponsored the event where the deadlift record was broken, and consequently it wasn't even broken. Now, that's partially because these were done as part of a full contest. That's not how you're going to get somebody to pull 1,100 pounds. We're going to jump forward to a couple of my favorites, Jerry Pritchett, Rauno, Heinla, and they're very similar in that they were both kind of dark horse guys who are always gatekeepers, kind of in the middle. Huge, insane deadlifts. Never really broke out or won any major events. Pritchett took third at the Big Arnold and fourth at World's Strongest Man. Heinla never really got that far, but he was still consistently kind of a middle tier guy at like the best shows. But their deadlifts were just absolutely insane. For Pritchett, let's just look at his deadlift setup here. He's known for his wide stance, almost a snatch grip. And it's funny because he used snatch grip deadlifts as an accessory because he does have his hands and feet out a bit wide. But the thing that stands out, wide stance, look how pitched over he is. Look how closed his hip joint is. That's what's different from like a wide conventional stance where the hands are outside the bar, and a sumo deadlift where the hands are inside the bar. You can push your hips forward, get very upright. Pritchett is bent the fuck over. So this is like a box squat good morning, and he's using regular straps too, so none of that figure eight fuckery where it's gaming an extra 2 inches because it's hanging in his fingertips. Now we look at Heinla with a 476. This is a big pull, and Heinla ain't no spring chicken either. Now Heinla's a bit more compact at the start. He's a bit different than Pritchett. His feet are a little closer, his hands are a little closer, and his butt comes down and in, and he hits it more like a typical kind of a dive bomb powerlifter. Drops a butt. So it's more of a pull for him, where Pritchett always described his deadlift as a push. How am I going to fix their deadlifts? I'm not. They're works of art. Chef's kiss. Now, I do think it's interesting that Pritchett went on record talking about his deadlift training and saying at least up to one of his biggest deadlifts, his training was basically a single of deadlifts from the floor, a single of rack pulls, a single of snatch grip deads. I believe it was like that. That gives you a lot of insight in how the most specialized people who are at the tippy top might train. I think that tells you also a lot about the type of person, how predisposed they were to it, because I believe a lot of these guys actually do have technically more in the tank if there was some hypothetical iteration of training that was more surgical. I think we can always hypothesize that somebody would be better, ourselves or even the best ever, if they had training that was perfect, whatever that means. If recovery was somehow better managed, if we had machinery to gauge every feedback loop in your body and predict when you should pull and how heavy you should go and when you should shut it down and what exercises you should do. I think there's always more that can be done, but training is never going to be like that, at least not in the near future. So the glory usually goes to people that are advantaged, that do have that predisposition, but also that fucking love it, that treat it like an instrument. It's Tony Hawk practicing to hit a 900 on a skateboard. This is like a labor of love, and I think the trend very much stands out that people go farther when they treat it as such. It's a very workmanlike approach, and that's ultimately what's going to be the difference between people that tend to do very well and people that don't. Will we ever get to the point where Skynet or ChatGPT, through their advanced technological algorithms, engineer the perfect deadlift program moment by moment? I don't know, but BaseStrengthAI is a pretty good start. This is the heart of old school training. It is the mind of cutting edge AI. You know me, I give a lot of shit to evidence-based training because it tries to do that thing I just talked about, but it can't. This is science applied in the way you want it, where it's actually controlling things that are of consequence. When you're training, you need a good template with good exercises, and that's what an old school approach does. Take a barbell, work hard, try to improve, and that's why so many guys from back in the day were so jacked with so little, but also you need it personalized. It's not enough to just follow the template. You have to mold it to you, your recovery, your skill set, your weaknesses. And that is where the important variables reside. That's where most lifters are either blind or where most coaches are just so drowning in emails and clients that they can't manipulate them. There's just not enough hours in the day. So that's why BaseStrengthAI, it is actually more thorough and more effective than a coach because it can affect many of these variables that go by somebody else on the other end of an email chain, and it's cheaper than an Excel program. Whether it's my app or somebody else's, this technology I do believe is going to be the cutting edge of training because there's just more variables that can be handled in real time, which you can't replicate anywhere else. And this gives you something you can't get anywhere else, which is your program. It's the backbone of my programs, my decision-making, my templates, the great exercises, the great arrangement, the proven methods, but it's molded to you. It takes that program and sucks it to your frame like shrink wrap. So every bit of recovery is handled, every bit of feedback is handled, and it goes into each workout, to each block, until you get something that is sustainable. Beautiful part, there are 3 programs in there you can choose from, and they're all viable to you. You can pick each one because the volume is being tailored to you and the weight's being selected according to your performance. The rest is just a matter of personal preference and what fills you with joy and excitement, and that is going to give you the best return on the other side. Take the questionnaire for free. It just shows you what kinds of questions are being asked. Even if you're like, this isn't for me, you're still going to see the types of things you need to be addressing, and you'll start answering in your own training questions you didn't even know to ask in the first place. BaseStrength.com, get it right now. It's like having a little Bromley in your back pocket. Who doesn't want that? ChatGPT, make me an image of a deadlifter, and don't worry about making it realistic. Oh, well done. Look at how long his arms are. His shin bones are longer than his spine. He's got the Konstantinov's round to optimize leverages. Look at that real estate between his earlobes and his shoulders. It's like his government handlers were looking at his build and they saw where like a normal shoulder ball and socket joint goes. They're like, no, we got to take that down 4 inches. Now, Makarov is born to deadlift the way Grigsby is born to deadlift. And this guy tries to break the deadlift record the way the Hamburglar tries to get your Big Mac. Like, this video alone is a compilation of all of his attempts to break it. And I hope for the sake of his loved ones that he finally gets it, because I don't think precise training decisions are what is driving his progress. If he keeps trying to blast himself to a 502 or higher, his heart's going to give him the John Paul Sigmarsson send-off. There's a miss, near-death experience. Keep that in your back pocket so you can put in your documentary in the future, how many times you almost died. And we got the second one. I like he's going for 505. He heard the internet comments about chipping the world record by a kilogram, just being a bitch move. And he's like, I'm going by 505. And he misses it. And you don't know if that's bleeding on the brain or if that's just the death cry of his fragile sense of self-worth. Here we go. 3rd time's a charm. He's got the hat on. I like it. Oh, that was like the worst one. I'm sorry, Papa. I let you in the motherland down. Gotta hand it to him. The dude's pretty jacked, though. Given that Eddie Hall is seen as like peak human deadlifting, it's kind of nice to be able to see the armpits of somebody going for the biggest deadlift of all time. I also love how his physique looks the nuttiest from behind, and it's like his favorite angle to take. Look at that back, man. Those are action figure proportions. They usually describe thick erectors like 2 loaves of bread. These are like 2 family-sized Stouffer's lasagnas from the frozen section. Hashtag realistic body standards. I don't even know what this is. Is that part of the traps? I didn't know they take on this shape. And if you were curious how to spot the leverages of a good puller, Look and see if their elbows physically touch their hip socket. I mean, say what you want about Ivan, but he's a specimen. I'm spending a little too much time on him, but look at this. They should have painted him green and he would have been a better Ninja Turtle than the live action monstrosity that Michael Bay made. And he also, oddly enough, for being a guy with such mutant long arms, is a pretty strong presser. Well, you know about that back arm, bro. You haven't trained with savages until you've trained with people that call the tricep the back arm. All right, moving on. Back to the topic at hand. I love talking about this. This is Edward Theodore Cornelius Hall's legacy performance, what he will forever be known as, the guy that broke 500 kilograms, 1102. You know what's special when the benchmark stands both in kilograms and pounds? That's like the total eclipse we just had. It's some biblical shit. It's like when the planets align, like this was written in the stars, 500 kilograms. And I love talking about the lore of this every chance I get. I'm going to wedge it into a video whenever I can. Hall's known for almost killing himself, ballooning up to this weight. I mean, look at this guy, even with the shirt on. I know he looks like your average Floridian at the beach, but this guy's up to like 440 fucking pounds. Not at 6'8", not at Shaw or Thor's height, but at 6'3". And he's got it immortalized right here. Like that's his avatar. That's peak Eddie Hall. That's what peak performance looks like. But like, imagine that this is lean for you. Like you have a torso where your shoulders, chest, waist, and hips are all 1-to-1. And you have like 40% body fat, but it's all in the omentum, like covered up by your thick transformer-like abdominals. This looks like Optimus Prime's mouth. Like imagine you're this 360, 380, and you're like, nah, you know what I gotta do? I gotta gain 60 more pounds. That's a ballsy move. Like I'm not even joking. I know it's a meme, but Eddie inarguably sacrificed a lot more to get this lift. Here we are, 1102. And he died for it. Now we got a couple things going on here. Let's hit that pause button. Now we got the token bloody nose, which by my approximation is 15W40. You got the figure eight fuckery going on, which not a lot of people point out, but that's a big difference. You got the fingertip shit. It's about 2 extra inches you get out of that. And I don't know if Eddie was getting that lift if he was strapped in the way Jerry Pritchett was strapped in, but they allow figure eights. It's part of the competitive pool, so it flies. It's just one of those what ifs. And he finishes it, and then you have this, which is going to be the trailer to Eddie Hall's lifetime biopic. Like imagine for a second that you told Thor when he was chasing this number, hey, you gotta turn yourself into a 7-foot tall Nikocado avocado if you want to hit that number. Do you think he would have taken the opportunity? Fuck no. Look at him. He would have taken his V-taper, his hot petite wife, and his Game of Thrones dollars, and he would have gone and lived happily ever after. But let's go ahead and pick apart Eddie's lift. Now he's known for doing this maneuver where he kind of squats down into the bar, and I really like it. He drops his butt down below and then picks up the bar on the way up right there. Now you're not getting stretch reflex, but it's a good way to find your position on the way up because it happens all at once. You can't whiff on it. And on big lifts like this, it's super easy to whiff on a deadlift, to get on your toes, get too far forward, fuck up your initial pull. It's also a really good cue to get leg drive. Olympic lifters do this a lot, but you're going to get a ton of leg drive cued into that bar, and that can help you kind of pick up some momentum, and you just feel it intuitively. You find your strongest position and the bar leaves the ground. So for those who practice it, it's a pretty good tool. But then again, you get good at how you train. Now, fixes pull, obviously Eddie here is leaving pounds on the table by being this big. Like if he got down to 275, maybe took some of those ballet classes I recommended Jamal Browner take, maybe train with Juji Mufu for a little while, he could open up those really tight strongman hips. You know, you're not getting any mobility out of those tight suckers. And he would be able to actually get his feet out a bit wider. He could be the first guy to sumo deadlift 1,200 pounds. And then he can hang out with Browner and Wiersbicki as they wait for a strap sumo deadlift to count for something anywhere. We're going to watch this over and over. The pro here is that Eddie isn't a super advantage puller, which I think is kind of cool. He locks the bar out closer to his junk than he does to his kneecaps. He's just really big and he's really fucking strong. And he also loves deadlifting because at some point he decided that was going to be the proxy for his self-worth. But yeah, the con here, I think the figure eights are doing a lot of work. I mean, he's in a suit, but most of these guys are. And of course, you got the whippy spaghetti bar, but like I said, that's not going anywhere. So it is what it is. All right, now we're going to get to the one that's going to have me raging in the comments from all the dumb shit that people are going to post. Ignore the banner that shows ESPN, WUS, Core Sports, Rain, Rogue, SBD, and the world's strongest man legend judging Magnus Ver Magnusson. This is a home gym lift, and that's his dad in the front. I have to bring this up every time until the legend dies. This was a sanctioned show. It had a legit judge. It was on a timed schedule. They actually used calibrated plates that they weighed on camera, which is more than you can say for Benny's 1015. And look at that. Oh my God. If anything, he got shit for leaving pounds on the table. Imagine you exceed an untouchable number and you do it to the point where people are mad you didn't do more. There's people complaining that he only chipped it by a pound, forgetting that Eddie Hall hit one of his records, chipping Benny by a pound, and then chipped his own record by a pound later. And of course, welcome to sports where 100-meter sprints are broken by hundredths of a second, where shot puts are broken by inches. That's how it goes. You don't get to choose to break world records by a fixed margin just because going lower than that is gay. That's fucking stupid. And by the way, guys, guest exhibition lifts where one person shows up at another contest they're not competing in order to break a record by themselves unchallenged, one of the most normal fucking things in strongman. So eat a dick about it being a blight on the sport. You spoiled shit should be so lucky that people worked so hard to keep these competitions going while the entire world was shut down during the pandemic. It was a blessing. Even Zadrunas tried to give shit as they were like gunning for the log record, because he had the log record at the time, that no, should not count unless in contest. But then Z went and judged like Stoltman's stone record where he hit a 630. And I'd be real interested to see how many people, when asked, what's the heaviest stone load ever done, say, well, don't bring up Stoltman's 630. Let's look at like the 550 that they used at the Arnold for all those years. It's all smoke and mirrors. All right, rant over. Let's get back to the pull. First of all, kind of a wide stance, but not really for his frame. It just looks like that compared to the bar. In the same vein as Pritchett, notice how folded over his hips are. Notice how closed the hip joint is at the start. Notice how pitched forward he is when the weight leaves the ground. That's where that 440 pounds of muscularity is contributing, because the only way you're moving that weight in that style is if you're that fucking big. All in all, this pull was much prettier than Eddie's was, and Thor managed to do it without looking like Pearl, the fat vampire from Blade 1. Now, how would I fix Thor's deadlift? I'd have him pass up peak Eddie in the bulk, push to 500 pounds body weight, and then schedule a series of home gym lifts, repeating this setup, and then chip his own record by 1 kilogram at a time. I think that would be great for the sport. It'd secure his legacy as the GOAT. So I did it. I fixed all the 1,000-pound deadlifts, and you know what? I'm not even going to bill these guys. I'm not even going to send an invoice because I do it for free. I do it out of the love of my heart, because that's why I get up in the morning, is to help strong people get stronger. Hopefully you guys got something out of this in between the shit posting. Let me know what you think of videos like this. I'm probably going to do a lot more. Don't forget to check out BaseStrengthAI. Thank you so much for your support. Comment in the comments section. I'm sure we're going to have a great time down there. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.